Thanks for joining us. I'm Sharon Yoo. In just about an hour, the driver accused of causing a deadly high-speed crash in Robbinsdale will face a judge for the first time. We learned in the last couple of hours that the bodies of all three of the swimmers missing in the Vermilion River since Monday have been recovered. That's according to the Goodhue County Sheriff's Office, who says the victims are 2 men and a 17-year-old girl. Former Minneapolis police officer who killed another driver during a high-speed chase was sentenced this morning to 270 days in an adult correctional facility. Governor Walz is spending the day in LeSueur County today supporting Minnesota's dairy farmers. Don't be fooled by the lack of rain right now. It is a weather-worn day. Still making headlines in terms of weather, though. The air quality not as bad as yesterday, right, Ben?
Yeah, you're right.
We have a sad update tonight to a story about a stolen education goat in St. Paul. Students, staff, and parents of Great River School searched all last week for Hazelnut, who was taken from her pen, and St. Paul police say they found remains that they suspect belonged to Hazelnut. Marina, Julie, we are standing right next to 2600 Minnehaha Avenue, and right now it just looks like an empty field, just a vacant lot, but this is the proposed alternate site for the 3rd precinct. The other option, keeping the 3rd precinct where it is right now, and residents say that's a false choice. These incidents aren't just happening in Brooklyn Park, with one of the more recent incidents happening in Maple Grove that moved down to Brooklyn Park. Mayor Hollis Winston says they've made public safety a priority and will continue to do so. If I'm a resident here and I saw the large gathering stuff on television and I'm like, wow, my park isn't even safe anymore, what would you say to that person?
I would say your park is safe, but I would also say, I get it. Public safety is got to remain a priority, right? And that means it remains a priority when we're dealing with these large gatherings. And it remains a priority when we've, over time, really pushed down these numbers.
What they are doing on paper is not inherently illegal. You are free to gather at a park. What is it about that makes city officials and law enforcement nervous?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a nervous thing, because we've spent a lot of time figuring out how to deal with this, right? And so I think it's the numbers, right? The sheer numbers, and the fact that if you have a few bad actors, right, sometimes that can catch on. I think what I've been impressed with our local law enforcement and police department is, I guess, 2 things. One, they've taken an approach of really working with violence interrupters and people in the community who have an understanding of the youth, or know the youth, or have those personal relationships. And so when you see these gatherings, and there's only been a few, I just want to make that clear, right? They've often led with folks who know the youth personally, and they're getting the youth to disperse.
You guys did not arrest anyone. You guys did not issue any citations, I don't think. And that was a deliberate choice.
I think our law enforcement is very aware that we need to have an environment where youth feel safe. But we also need to let people know that we will not tolerate people kind of going outside of that, right? But we're going to build a rapport where you feel comfortable letting us know what you're going to do. You feel comfortable being in these spaces. We have to also teach people that when you're coming to these large gatherings, these are the expectations that you have. And as a city, we're going to help you learn that our city really is a village, and we have to look at it and understand it as that way. And we can't jump from this makes me uncomfortable to assuming criminality. We have to say, hey, we as a city have every right to shape our youth to understand how to make the right decisions. And if we come in there with an antagonistic approach, we're never going to teach them that these are the expectations.
And good news, according to data from the Brooklyn Park Police Department, overall crime is apparently down within the city, including violent crime. They say they're working with surrounding regional partners to get ahead of these gatherings, focusing on intel and having resources available just in case the gatherings do go awry.
He seemed really, really transparent in his answers with you, Sharon, and you and I were talking before the story aired about, parks are open to kids and school is out. People have to have a place to go.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, he was excited to talk about that, and we didn't have enough time in the story to get to it. He says the city is working and on investing in this place that they're calling the third space, so that kids, not just young kids, but also like older teens, have a place to go that's not home or school. So they are working on that as well.
All right. Thanks so much, Sharon. Appreciate it.
All dressed up in their finest clothes, Eid al-Adha celebrations involved a small photo shoot at a refugee camp in Ethiopia. The photos are for Robbie Mohammed, St. Cloud resident of 7 years.
To be honest with you, I have had some sadness over the years because my family was not here, my wife was not here, my kids were not here. I didn't have any other extended family members here, so I felt a lot of sadness over the years.
The distance is not for a lack of trying. Mohammed, who came to the U.S. in 2015 as a refugee, filed for his family to come with him after his arrival. Family reunification is a unique right that people with refugee status have, something Alexandra Zaretsky with the International Refugee Assistance Project says should have taken a maximum of months.
Robbie's case had been pending almost 7 years just at this first step, which is about essentially proving that and verifying that he has a relationship to his wife and his kids, and that relationship existed at the time he was admitted as a refugee. Even that first step used to be something that would happen in an average of like 8 months. And now it's ballooned for everyone. I think in 2022 it was something like 28 months just for that first step.
But not 7 years. Both Mohammed and Zaretsky say they have a hunch as to why it's taken so long.
I do think that the former president has something to do with that because he forbid from people from my country to come to this country for a period of time.
Executive Order 13769, or the so-called Muslim ban, was signed by then-President Donald Trump in 2017. Under the Biden administration, the effects of that ban still linger.
There's delays across the board for everyone, but certainly families from Somalia and other Muslim-majority countries seem to be seeing the largest delays.
Plus, Zaretsky says Mohammed's case was subject to unusual scrutiny, the agency requesting DNA evidence to prove his relationships with his sons, something that could be voluntarily submitted but never required.
He submitted everything that by USCIS's regulations they were required to approve his application. It should have been a ministerial, very easy process, and yet they sat on it and asked him a lot of very detailed questions about the marriage certificate, about the birth certificates. They came back and asked for DNA evidence when it's not required. And so none of that should have happened.
Another thing that delayed the case even more was that Mohammed never received any communication from USCIS saying that it was looking for DNA evidence in the first place. The team only found out that his case had been temporarily closed due to lack of evidence through a Freedom of Information Act request.
At a certain point, got stuck in a pile, and no one was paying any attention to it. These cases have been transferred around the country, to different processing centers multiple times. And each time that happens, the physical file has to be sent somewhere else, and it just gets stuck in another pile. I think partly neglect and people not paying attention to it, and partly maybe some of these changes that came in with the Trump administration just applying extra scrutiny to Somalis.
Mohammed, in the last 7 years, has only been able to visit his family once. His youngest, Khalid, 4 years old now, was born after that visit.
He's never held Khalid, right?
Never seen him since he was born. He asked me questions about, Dad, when are you coming back? Or when are you going to see us? And I don't have an answer for him. And it's really a shame that I'm not able to tell him, that this is what's going on. I don't know if he can understand that, but I just feel sad when he asks me those questions.
So since our interview, Mr. Mohammed did submit DNA evidence, even though, again, it wasn't required. And that first step actually has been approved. But it could still be years before his wife and kids can physically come to the U.S. because of interviews, processing, and more evidence providing on this side and also from Ethiopia.
So Sharon, the point of the lawsuit then is what? What does Mr. Mohammed want right now?
Well, so the lawsuit is what's called a mandamus lawsuit, which is just asking the courts to help speed the process up, not asking specifically for an approval or a denial. It will continue to move its way through the courts to ensure that they don't drop the ball on continuing the processing. Other than that, the suit only asks for compensation of attorney fees.
So he's willing to pass all of the country's tests, just go faster than 7 years.
That, and then he's also willing to wait several more years.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Such an important story. Appreciate it.